Hello, everyone, and welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast, where we talk about passive investing, real estate, and all the money moves you can make while working your W2 so you can establish your financial freedom. Nick, what are you doing? Here to talk about their W2 journey is your host and amigos, Nick Coulter and Xavier Marin. So, Nick, what were you doing there?
Dancing, bro. I had a little coffee before our episode, and we had a really good time today on our podcast, so I was just very excited. So, my bad. I was dancing.
So stay tuned for the YouTube version. You can see those moves.
Shit. I forgot we're recording.
So, Nick, who do we have on the podcast today?
Man, we got Chase, man. So Chase is someone that you met, I believe, at Bigger Pockets, right?
Yep. BB Con.
Yeah, man. Super cool dude. Lives out in Alabama. Just like one of the most humble and authentic guys I've ever experienced. Just like chit-chatting with. So super great connection. Talks a lot about kind of one of the things that he's done in his career, what he's moving into through his W-2, and he hasn't had to work for a couple of years now, but he still chooses to, which I thought was pretty rad. But yeah, man, what are you taking away, X? What are you walking away with?
During the podcast, he talks about how he kind of blends his W-2 job with what he's doing in real estate. So when he's out there, because he works in sales, so when he's out there making those sales, he doesn't necessarily have like a 9-to-5 job. He's able to work things in between. So in between either breaks, he's talking to agents, he's going to see properties. So he's really has a good mixture of both things, which is really great. And plus, he has a 3-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a wife back home. So in order to, thrive as a family man, thrive as a real estate investor, thrive as a full-time W-2 employee, you got to be able to figure out how to blend all those together. And I think he does a really nice job with that.
Yeah, I think it was an absolute fantastic episode. We're going to try something new before we get to the content. If you guys haven't already, please, it would mean the world to us and really help us out. Drop us a 5-star review or an honest review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us grow, and the channel is really picking up some momentum. We just crested 1,000 views, so wanted to gatekeep it a little bit, the content, so that hopefully we can get you guys to drop us a review. It would mean the world to us, but let's get to it.
Chase, welcome to the W2 Amigos podcast, man. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you guys?
Doing all right, man. Happy to have you. You and I connected 2 months ago on BP Con. It was funny because we chatted a little bit because you were taking a photo for Jose and I think for like one of our old mastermind groups. So appreciate you doing that. And I know then you and I were able to collect later on. So definitely happy to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed meeting you guys. That was actually my first time going to BP Con. As long as I've been listening to the podcast and reading the blogs, I've never actually been to BPCon, and I chose the farthest one away from me for some reason to go to. So I enjoyed it, though. It was great. It was really good.
I will say, though, you did not make a mistake going to San Diego, because that's like one of my favorite places in the world, and it just so happens that's where Nick also lives too. So
I would say, Chase, you got a place to stay whenever you come back down, man.
Were you there today? Were you at BPCon?
Yeah, I was. X and I kind of divided and conquered, and he seemed to meet really cool people. I was a little scared, a little intimidated, because that was my first one too. So I was like kind of creeping in the shadows. But yeah, it was a great time, man. I had a ton of fun. It was a little overwhelming that first night, that party night. That was not my scene, so it was a lot. But then we got into the good stuff, and it was great. I'll never miss another one.
That would have been my scene 15 years ago, the college days, or maybe a few years after college. But at 36, it's not my scene anymore. But it was a good time.
Not the scene. Yeah. Especially right as you're putting down your kid before you jumped on with us.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Not the scene.
Yes, 100%. It forces me to have early bedtimes because I have to wake up early regardless. So they don't care what time you go to sleep.
Nope.
Good stuff, and we'll appreciate you making the time.
Definitely.
We definitely want to kick off with, I know that you have a full-time job and you're an avid investor as well. So definitely would love for you to take our listeners through a little bit more of your story and just how overall, like how'd you got started?
Yeah, definitely. So my full-time W-2 is in pharmaceutical sales. And so I started doing that right out of college at 22. And it's really hard to get a job. So I just got a job with like a really small, like a bottom of the barrel company. So I've been doing that for 14 years now. And so I'm 36. So that's really, as far as W-2, post-college, real world W-2, that's kind of all I know. And so I've done that. And about 4 years ago, I guess maybe 6 or 7 years ago, started becoming interested in investing and kind of went down the route of the stocks and the mutual funds and the index funds first. And then I'm like, well, this is fine, but like I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to have to cash in a 401k and get my 7 or 8% return. And I said, I'm okay. I can still do this, but I want to do real estate now. And so, found Bigger Pockets and some of the other stuff probably 6 or 7 years ago. Took probably a year and a half or 2 years before I did anything other than learn and listen. And in 2018, I bought my first rental property. So ever since then, I guess that's 4 years ago now, which is crazy to think. But I've loved it. It's a game changer for me, and I started doing that as kind of like a way to invest my extra money from my W-2. And now 4 years later, I'm like, get me out of the W-2. I just want to do that. So it's done a complete 180 since then.
So did you, bringing it back to the W-2, you got out of college, you knew you wanted to move into pharmaceutical sales. Did you kind of move around companies? I know you started with a smaller one. Did you kind of jump around the last, 14 years? It's a long time to be with one company. I'm 12 in mine. So did you move? Did you jump? Tell us about that.
I did. So the one I started with was like, I mean, we had 40 reps nationwide, mainly in the Southeast. It was straight commission, so no base. And I was selling cough syrup. And, there's not a lot of people that cough except in the wintertime and maybe some in the spring and fall, and you're on straight commission. And so summertime, those commission checks can get a little smaller than you're comfortable with. But honestly, I would, looking back at it, being with a bigger company now, I'd almost rather go back to that and just kind of say, hey, I kill what I eat. I'm not relying on anybody else or anything else. Makes you work a little harder. And, I guess if you're good, the sky's the limit. There's really no cap on it. But I went from that company, thought that company was about to go under. So I went to a little bit bigger company. So was there for probably 4 or 5 years as well. And then got a job offer from one of the larger pharmaceutical companies. And that's where I'm at now. So I've been here for
That's awesome.
7 years, since 2015.
7 years. How do you like selling stuff, man? I got in the real estate game doing sales as a realtor a little bit. I actually have a lot of fun because I get to be myself, but I get to be like a super authentic person and still be able to sell. I kind of enjoy it. What about you? Do you like it?
Man, I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything that didn't have some type of sales aspect to it. And I think I like it so much just because of the people aspect and the relationships. I know being in sales, and you guys know this too, it gets a bad rap of like, are you like a sleazy car salesman, or are you that can go a lot of different ways. And so I really enjoy it, man. I can't imagine doing anything that's not in sales in some form or fashion. So.
Yeah, we get bad names. There's a lot of dirtbags out there that are bad people, and they screw it for the rest of us.
Yeah. And Grant Cardone started out in sales and sales training. I don't know if you guys knew that before real estate. Yep. So you listen to some of his stuff, which I listened to years ago, and it's like the high pressure, like sign here, here's the pen, sign on the line. And I'm like, I'm sure he's really good, but that's just not my style.
Yeah. It's funny because I get some questions sometimes for some of my other agent friends. They're like, dude, you just like schedule calls and don't make them sign documentation to be your buyer or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, like if they want to work with me, I want them to want to work with me because it's not my sole income yet. I really just want them to have a good experience. Exactly. And I work mostly with investors anyway. So I'm creating a repeat client in my mind. I'm going to have people coming back to me year over year trying to continue to invest.
We know one of the things about, I guess a lot of sales are the same way, but like medical sales, pharmaceutical sales, you're not calling on new people. Once you get the sale, you're not done. Like you're not selling copiers or billboards to whereas they sell and they sign a 3-year contract or 2-year contract. And now you just talk to them every couple months until it's signed to re-sign. I'm going to most of these places every week. So I've got doctors that I've been calling on the whole time I've been doing this for 14 years, and I'm in there every week or every other week. And it doesn't matter up, down, neutral. It doesn't matter. I'm still in there the next week or the next week. And so it's a little bit different than you're not signing and getting out of there. You're never finished. So it's more relationships.
Yeah. Being a realtor is like that too. Cause you walk them through the whole process, 60, 45 days, or whatever the close is. So it's really interesting. I do like it though. It's a lot of fun because you get to be a little bit more creative. You get to try stuff, see if it works out or not, get to market yourself a little bit. So
yeah, I love it.
Chase, what I've noticed that there's a lot of successful investors that come from the sales background. What have you noticed? What have you noticed from like your skill set is very translatable to what you're doing today with your investments?
I think the biggest thing is probably just being able to be a people person and help people feel comfortable in conversation. I don't know if it's a generation. I know really people our age and younger, it's not really easy sometimes to carry on a conversation with them. And a lot of people, I feel like when you're getting in a high pressure situation of, hey, you're trying to get someone to sign a contract or you're negotiating a deal with a seller, a lot of people may be uncomfortable in that situation. And I feel like just me being in that for so long, it's given me a lot of people skills and a lot of understanding of how to pick up on what they're feeling and the nonverbal cues to be able to handle those situations a little better than I would be able to if I didn't have that experience. So I think that's the biggest thing, man. I think communication and the ability to talk and translate what you really want to translate is probably one of the most undervalued skills there is out there.
Yeah, I think that's really important because sometimes I feel that people miss the human element when they're doing real estate, right? So people just view a deal, they just view a property, but there's always a story behind why that individual is selling, why they're willing to do sub-2, why they're willing to sell off market. Yeah. And you need to be able to relate and connect with those folks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, great call out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring it forward now, but still back. You said you kind of, messed around with stocks, stuff like that. I went through a similar phase. Seems like gambling to me, and I didn't really like it too much. But then I stumbled across Bigger Pockets via my roommate in Virginia, Xavier Marin here. Marin, sorry, I got to pronounce it correctly. And then I just kind of went down the rabbit hole. How did you start educating yourself on the real estate investing before you pulled the trigger in 2018?
So kind of the same exact way, man. So there's a stock kind of investing website, very similar to Bigger Pockets. I don't know if you guys know what that is. I think it's Bogleheads after, I forgot his first name, John Bogle, whoever it is. He was like the guy that Warren Buffett learned from. And you get on there and it's just all the, how can I save $10 on an oil change? It's still stock related, but everyone in the blogs and all the chat forums and all that are just, it's almost just how can I pinch pennies more? And it's a totally different mindset of real estate than grow and creation. That's more of a save and let's be super conservative. And actually I was in that one day reading stuff and someone actually said, hey, if you're interested in real estate, to someone totally unrelated, hey, check out Bigger Pockets. And I clicked on it, done. Hadn't been back to that other website yet. Never been back since. It's a game changer. It's a totally different, I feel like I can relate more to the real estate mindset of grow and creation and shoot for goals versus the, hey, let's hunker down and pinch pennies. So once I found that new group of people, I've never looked back. And that's where I did most of my education.
Did you go down the podcast route? Because I swear I listened to like 400 hours of podcasting.
I think I've listened
like
to
6
all of
months.
them, yeah. I probably started, I don't know where it was when I started, maybe in the hundreds, somewhere around there, maybe low hundreds. But I went back, started at one, listened to every single one of them. And so, yeah, I haven't listened to as many recently as I have in the past, but all the earlier ones I've listened to probably too many times.
My wife and I did the same thing. We used to get jazzed when they released the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. I remember episode 1 of that. I was like, this is what I've been looking for because I need more budgeting advice and real estate advice. So I just started eating those up too all the time. Mindy and Scott just dropping stuff. And it's interesting because you just do it in your car. And it's funny because I don't really listen to music now anymore. It's either a podcast or an audiobook all the time as soon as I'm driving anywhere, walking anywhere. I've gone back to the gym having some music in there because I've been doing a little bit of heavier stuff. So I got a little punk music getting me fired up. But before that, X and I would go to the gym together. We shared this on a previous episode and we'd be listening to 2 different podcasts. And I'm in the middle of a bench press one time and this dude takes his headphone out and he goes, have you heard about like borrowing against your own life insurance? And I was like, no. And I'm like under the bar. And so he puts his headphone back in and then we just keep going.
That's fun.
But yeah, it would be like, we would do that all the time. It was just something. And I think Scott said it in his books, Set for Life, like turning your car into a library and just traveling everywhere you could and trying to get as much information and content downloaded.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah, same way. I don't listen to music anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, that was a compliment where I wasn't really worried about your bench press. I knew you had it, man.
It was 95 pounds. Of course I had it. It was 95 pounds. I mean, it was 225 for the listeners. 315, Chase. That's right. I knew you were there. I had no idea.
You can edit whatever you want into that. So that can be 405. It can be whatever. Yeah.
Just start staying numbers 495. Oh man, that's awesome. So cool. So you got involved. Kind of give us a rundown of that first deal, man. How'd you feel comfortable pulling the trigger? Because I know, what is it, analysis paralysis bites a lot of people in the ass pretty
Oh
bad.
yeah, it got me big time. That's why it took me a year and a half or so to actually buy my first deal. Um, I was stressed out like crazy. Financed the deal. Knew it was a good area, or a good investing area. Knew it would rent well. I knew the numbers would work out. What I wasn't super familiar with was the construction side and the rehab side. And so
Hmm.
my numbers were good, my area was good, my price was good, my rent that I got was good. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what to look for. Hey, how old is that roof? Hey, the AC's older. Hey, these floors gonna need to be replaced. It's not carpet. They look fine, but they're not fine. Just that kind of stuff that I've actually still got the property and I've replaced, of course, ACs, roofs, a lot of the flooring, that kind of stuff. But I walked in, it's just, I guess it's feel like a lot of times the average person when they're buying a house and they're not in real estate, they walk in and they look at the paint and they look at the bathrooms and look at the kitchen and say, this is great. This is amazing. And they don't realize the roof is 40 years old and half the shingles are missing. The AC is from 1993. You don't look at that because you don't know. You don't know what's PEX and what's PVC. You just say, hey, this looks great. This is amazing. I love this paint color. Let's buy it. That's kind of how it was. And so turned out fine. But it's one of those things that once you do it the first time, now it's easy. Now it's like it took me a year and a half or 2 years to buy the first one. And I think it was a month before I bought the next one. And then probably 2 months before I bought the next one. Because you realize it's not that big of a deal, as bad as that sounds. Man, as good, I guess, however you want to take that, it's not that big of a deal.
You and X, man, you were born to hang out together
Really?
because he did the same thing. He waited for a couple of years and then he bought his house hack. And then like 45 days later, this dude's like,
Yeah.
hey, so I'm buying a cabin in Tennessee. I'm like, what the
I love
fuck?
it.
He's like, oh, I'm
Love
buying a
it.
house in Asheville. I'm like, oh, shit, that's awesome.
So, and I'm super conservative too. So, like, even to this day, I'm really conservative. So, like, I bought the first one finance, and I'm like, well, that wasn't a bad deal. So, I just started paying cash for them. And so, like, we're
Hmm.
not in San Diego, so we're not talking crazy. I mean, we're talking 50, $60,000. They need 15, $20,000 of work. Now, you can't buy those same houses for that. Now, those same houses are 100 to $120,000 now here. But in
Hmm.
2018, I mean, you could buy. I was buying houses like 1.5% rule, so between 1% and 2%, and so they
That's
were
good.
fine, and you could be all in for that. And I have a couple that I bought for the 2% rule in different situations, but that was, it was even though it was only 4 years ago, it was a different time. I feel like
Yeah. Well, it's always 4 years
that's
ago,
true.
right? And people are, I can't wait to hear people complain about me when I'm like 75 years old. And they're like, well, of course he has that house in North Park. He bought it in 2022.
Exactly.
You know what I
Of
mean?
course,
Like,
it's stupid cheap back then. Yeah,
yeah, it was like, what did you pay? Like an avocado and a nickel for your college tuition
exactly.
too?
Yeah.
That's how people are going to think.
That's
To
how
do the
it's going to
same
be, though.
thing.
But we're sitting here thinking, oh,
Hmm.
the sky's falling. No one can afford houses. How can I ever get a house that's going to cash flow? And you're going to look back and say, why didn't I buy more, even right now? Just a
Yep,
matter of how
absolutely.
long is it going to be till we say that? Is it going to be 2 years or is it going to be 10 years? But we're going to say it.
Well, and that's why it sounds like you're doing the buy and hold strategy, which I'm a huge proponent of because you insulate yourself from a lot of
Yeah.
exterior problems. If you can buy and hold it at 7% interest at a high price, at 5% interest at a higher price, you're going to be even better because now you have the equity
Yeah.
and you're still got that holding.
Well, so I bought six out of the gate within like a year and a half or maybe 2 years. And then so I was self-managing these because they were all within like 30 minutes of where I live. And I said, all right, well, I don't want to manage anymore. I don't really want to hand it over to a property manager right now. But I was finding like my last 3 or 4 deals I found off market. And so because I thought deals were high, I was like, oh, deals are getting too expensive. It's 2019. Like I'm not paying these prices. And they were probably better than the 1% rule. I was like, I'm not touching that. That's crazy. So I started finding mine off market. And so once I got those six, I didn't want to manage anymore. And I said, well, I'm still finding properties. What am I going to do? So I started selling a few. And then I sold maybe, it was me and a partner went in together on those. I said, hey, I'll find them if you sell them. And so we were selling to investors. think we did 2 or 3 where we just didn't touch. We just double closed them. And then we started working on them. So ever since then, it's been February of 2020, we did our first flip, and we're flipping 3 or 4 a month now, ever since then.
That's awesome. Chase, how'd you become educated in being able to run your deal analysis when you were looking at those first couple of homes that you purchased? Because then you said you financed your first one and then you started buying cash. So how did that look like?
So I just knew what they would rent for and knew that the price you just couldn't lose. So like I was all in for 50, 55 grand, and they were renting for 800, 850. And the area is not terrible. I mean, it's not an A class area, but it's not a C minus or a D class area either. I'd say it's C plus, B minus area. And so I had other friends that also had rental properties in those areas as well. And so actually had a friend of mine would help me and say, hey, after the first one, and I made all the mistakes on the roofs and the ACs and the flooring. He said, all right, well, your next few, when you find one you want, let me go look at it with you. And he would say, oh, you don't want this one. Look at these foundation problems. I said, oh, foundation problems. How do you know what foundation problems are? And so just kind of helped me the first few along the way, probably the first 3 or 4 after the first one to help me get going.
So I want to go back to your comment that you said just now about, about that, but it relates to the community. I found the real estate community, especially when you compare it to the corporate world, and even being a realtor, the real estate community, man, everyone wants everyone else to succeed at a certain level. You know, like your buddy's going to be like, hey, let's go walk this property together. Let's go take a look. I'll tell you if you like it or not. I don't think that's going to happen if you're going toe to toe with another salesperson at your job. You know, they may not. Hey, I got this great lead. Yeah. Do you want to close it? You know?
Yeah, 100%. And he actually, he was a good friend of mine. Actually became a better friend. That's who I started flipping properties with. And we actually split up this past May. So I'm just flipping. I don't know what he's doing right now, but I'm still kind of doing the same thing. But yeah, we stayed and helped each other out and worked together for probably 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome. Making those relationships through real estate, just maintaining them and build them into partnerships.
100%.
So Chase, what's your total portfolio look like now? So you said you're doing about 3 or 4 flips a month. What are you looking at in terms of total assets right now?
So I've got those same 6 houses I bought the first 1.5 or 2 years. And then for about 2 years there, or from then until, or from 2020, February 2020 until about 3 months ago, I didn't buy and hold anything. I just flipped everything. And so I wish I wouldn't have, but I've just kind of gotten that mindset, and the machine got built, and everything you found, you just had to keep throwing in and keep the contractors busy, keep the investors that were buying them busy, keep them fed. And I kind of got caught up in the rat race. And you guys know flipping's like another job. And it's not passive, it's not investing, it's just a real estate job. And so you get caught up in that job, and you have to go through your checklist, and you have to feed that. And so I didn't hold anything until August of this past year. I bought a 10 unit, and then I bought a 2-unit office building in August. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to navigate away from single family stuff and dial back the flips to maybe do 1 to 2 a month, but spend most of my time in large multifamily.
Dang, so we went commercial.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I'd like to live from here on out. Yeah.
For those single family homes that you were flipping, did you have a team already with you? Like, did you have contractors, property managers? Like, what did that look like for you? Because I'm pretty sure working your full-time job and then managing on those flips, that's a lot to take on for someone that, you know, also has a family, you know, a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it is for sure. So when we first started, the partner that helped me, he had about 50 rental properties, and he's self-managed. And so he had a small crew of like 2 or 3 guys that worked for him full-time. Because when you have 50 or I don't know, 50 or 60, however many he had, you're always going to have stuff to do. And so he would work on the crew. He would do the day-to-day stuff as well. And so he kind of had that. Well, he sold his whole portfolio about the time we started flipping. So we flipped for probably 3 months, and he was like, man, I'm done with rentals. I just want to flip. Sold his whole portfolio, and those guys came and worked for us. So me and him were partners in flipping everything. So kind of slid them over, and we had a crew built in. When me and him split up in May, of course, he ran the construction side, and I ran everything else. And so now I'm like, hey, I'm done effective immediately. I have no crew. I have no nothing, because I've never had to. And so essentially had to take that business down to zero sell all the houses I had with him, and then start back from scratch. And so I'm probably working less now than I was then, to be honest with you, which is nice.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah. So
Try to make it as passive as possible.
yeah, as far as crews go, I hired a guy that it's actually a 19-year-old kid that I know that had done like painting and stuff before. And just a really, when I say I hired a 19-year-old kid, you would think, or I would tell you you're crazy if you did that, but he's running the whole construction side. So he's, I worked with him for probably a month or so. We found guys, we did a couple houses together, and now he essentially just runs everything. So he'll say, hey, this house is finished. Hey, we're doing floors, we're doing a roof, we're doing this. And it's done. It'll be done. Like I talked to him today. We talk probably every day, but he said, hey, this house will be done on Thursday. We can go ahead and sell it. And he's moving everybody. We usually run 2 crews, maybe 2.5 crews. And he's moving, starting on the next one after that. So it's working really well.
That's awesome.
For the properties that you sold off with your partner, did you put that capital back into that apartment complex and those office buildings, or how were you able to raise capital for those?
Yeah, I put it all back in there. So I'm in it just me on all that. And so one of the good things about having a W-2, before I started real estate, I had the same job. And so I was able to live off that same income. And so ever since I've started real estate in 2018 with the 6 rentals, and then now all the flips, 70 something, 80 something flips over the last 2.5, 3 years, I haven't spent any of that money. It's all still back in the real estate business. And so when I bought the apartment complex in the office building, 25% down, I was just able to use the money from the flips and the rentals without having to bring a partner in for that.
That's awesome. Do you mind? I don't know if you have them like on the top of your mind. I'm sure you do, based on your deal analysis. What are the numbers? Check out on that 10 unit, and then I probably want to hear about the commercial property next, because you're our first like commercial guest, right? That's really dug into that and started doing it on their own.
So the 10 unit actually. So I found it off market. Asked the guy, hey, do you want to sell it? He said, I'll only sell this, but I have 22 total units I want to buy. I mean, I want to sell. Either you buy all of it or none of it. And I'm like, all right, well, I want the 10 unit apartment complex. It's in a really good area. It's like a B+ area. It was built in 2002, I think, all brick, single story. It's nice, already updated. And so I wanted that, and I wanted the office building as well. But he had 2 fourplexes and a duplex in a different area of town that was still a good area of town, but I just didn't want to hold anything there. And so what we did is we got a contract got them all under contract, all 22. We called our investors that we flip our houses to and said, hey, here's what we have. We have 2 fourplexes and a duplex. Here's what they rent at. And here's what we'll sell them to you for. So we essentially double closed the 2 fourplexes and duplex, made money on that side, and then was able to slide some of the purchase price off of the 10 unit in the office building over to that. So we made a little less money on that than we would have. But I got the office building and 10 unit about 25% cheaper than I would have paid by itself. So it's good.
Hell yeah.
So I'm in on the 10 units. So I was in for about $57 a door.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
So they were renting. So it was 511s, or it is 511s and 521s. So the 5-1s average rent on the 5-1, I mean on the 1-1s was $522. So market rent for 1-1s, like all around there in apartments, is $850. And so,
oh my God,
the 2-1s, the average rent. Now, of course, when the average, nothing was $522, but they were like $495, $575. So the 2-1s, the average rent was a $617. Market rent's $950. And so, so to get them at $57 a door, that was great. I felt like, and so. Most of them were already updated. There was nothing old. You know, they're 01 builds, and so nothing's really that old. Even the ones that haven't been updated are still not bad. Most of them have been redone with LVP, stainless steel appliances. I mean, we're not talking granite countertops, but we're still, they look nice. So we came in. One of the good things, too, is 8 out of those 10 tenants were on month-to-month leases already. They had been expired for years. So you're talking typical mom and pop maintenance or mom and pop owners. So rents were way under market value. All the leases were expired. So we were able to come in and raise rents about 100. I think the average is like 100, $150 across the board for those 8. Nobody budged. just because they couldn't go anywhere else and still rent for what the new rent was. And so
Mm-hmm.
we've done one rent bump. I think the two that expire in February, we're probably going to take those straight to market value, just see what it goes.
Just out of curiosity, Chase, so you definitely had quite a bit of room to increase the rent, but you didn't in one fell swoop. Like, what was your thought process behind, hey, I'm going to go ahead and meter it out versus, all right, market rent's 800, you're going to go for 5 to 8.
Yeah. Main reason was I didn't have the bandwidth to do all 10 turnovers at one time. Doing flips, we had numerous flips going, and we always have, like, I think we have 6 properties right now that we're flipping, 2 that we're working on, and 4 right behind it. I didn't want to have that many turnovers all at once. Also, I didn't want to have vacancy, 80% vacancy for 2 months or 3 months until I turn these units over, get them rented, get the leases signed, and get the tenants moved in and get first month deposit. And I weighed that. My property manager that I was using said, hey, we can do this, and I still don't think many people are going to leave, even if we take it to market rent, because they can't go anywhere cheaper in this area. It's a good area. And so we compromised, and we went 100 $150, depending on if it was a 1-1 or a 2-1. I think we bumped the 1-1s up to $650, so that's $128. And I think we bumped the 2-1s up to $700. So they're still $200 $250 below market rent. Yeah.
See, I think that's smart though, because you're kind of leveling the renter in there,
Mm-hmm.
and you're probably giving them the sense of comfortability, knowing you're not the new landlord coming in just snaking everybody and going max rent increases.
100%.
So you wanted it such a more favorable cap for you, but you're going to be able to raise those rents by the time you sell that thing, man. You could probably 1031 it into a 50 unit at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I may hold it forever, or for a while. So it cash flowed about $97, $98 a door with those rents, with the old rents. So it'll cash flow $300 a door when it gets to market rent, 300 plus.
Hey, that's not bad.
For an apartment complex. I mean, for a house, that's okay, but for an apartment complex at $300 a door, I feel like that's pretty strong. And that's with current rents now. And that's conservative. Probably, with current rents and average expenses, you're probably looking around $350. That's with no rent bump over 5 years. That's just getting the market rents.
So in 2 years, you could be making $5-6 grand a month on that property cash. And you, being the frugal W-2 investor you are, is just going to reinvest that back into more properties.
Yeah, I don't have to touch it.
Ooh-wee.
Which my thing is,
Yeah,
I feel like the whole real estate world now and the whole Instagram and all that, social media is all get out of your W-2, get out of your W-2 as fast as possible. And that's good. I don't have a problem with that. If you hate your job, and if you're making 30 grand a year and you hate your job, leave, do real estate, go all in. And I don't have a problem if you're making $500,000 at your W-2 and you want to go all in. That's not an issue. But if you can live off your W-2 money and not have to touch your real estate money, it's just that goes back to that delayed gratification. The Stanford study, don't touch the marshmallow. The longer you can not touch that marshmallow on the table, the better. If you can delay that for 1 year, great. If you can delay it for 6 or 7 years because you don't hate your job and you can stay there, when 6 or 7 years gets here, you're going to be sitting nice, really nice, because that money is able to snowball. But if you're taking the money out as fast as it comes in, there's nothing to snowball. Nothing there. You don't get the benefits.
Yep, and then you start getting to the victim of lifestyle creep, and then you start counting on that income as well too, and then it just becomes a vicious cycle.
Done. Like, there are so many people out there that are, they have 20, 30 units and they're cash flowing $100, $150 a door once they take out vacancy and capex and all that. And they say, hey, I've made it. I'm quitting my job, financial freedom. I'm here. And they're making 35 grand a year. Well, that's okay, but you can't really grow. I mean, you can go the seller finance route and the sub-2 route and all that, but you can't grow unless you get creative with 35 grand a year, because you got to live off of it. You got nothing left.
And I'll say this for the folks on the podcast. If you hate your job because you have to work hard or there's something wrong with it fundamentally, whatever the case may be, I almost promise you running your own business as a real estate investor is going to be way worse, because there is this financial crippling burden bearing down on you with no security. And like, to your point, Chase, like earlier, invest conservatively. Mm-hmm. All of us are very conservative investors. I have quite a bit of equity in both my homes that I just closed on. Yeah, I could take HELOCs out there and go max out everything. But I'm like, hey, let's just slow roll it, man. I like my job. I'm cool with the amount of money we make and save every month. and I don't hate my life. So, and I think a lot of people are like, man, I hate my job.
Mm-hmm.
If I could be my own boss, it'd be amazing. Dude, being your own boss typically ends up in 12-hour work days for me.
100%.
Like I'm on the weekends trying to do 12 to 13 hours of work on my real estate business. 100%. I'm not having any fun.
No,
It's not fun. It will be eventually,
exactly.
But right now it's a grind.
Mm-hmm.
It's a job.
Yep. It is 100%.
Sorry, I'm on my soapbox.
No,
I'll
you're
jump
good.
off
I'm on the same soapbox with you. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not against, and I've even said, was it in 2021? I said, all right, well, January 2022, I'm leaving my job. Well, I'm still here. It got here and I was like,
January 23.
Yeah, and I got there and I was like, why? Yes, I can grow real estate faster. Could I make an extra $1 million next year if I don't have a W-2 and just did all real estate? I think there's a good chance. But when I lay my head on my pillow for the next 365 days, am I actually going to sleep? Is it worth it? Yes, $1 million would be worth it, but I don't know. I have to, I'm not a fan of stress. I don't like to stress and I don't like to be worried and lose sleep. And I do a really good job of not stressing. But when I'm stressed, I hate it. And so if I was in that situation, I would hate it. So what that flows over to is it flows over to my wife and my kids getting the short end of that because I'm coming home stressed, or they're getting less time with me. I've got a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. If I left my W-2, I would work more, at least until I got built up to where I felt safe to replace that income. And so I'm content where I'm at. We're building a house right now, so we're got the foundation, the framing, and all that done. And so I'm for sure not leaving until we get done with that and do that permanent loan. But that's probably May or so. But even then, I'm probably not leaving then. I would say maybe next year. Probably next year. I'm not putting the date on it anymore because I don't have a reason to. And as soon as I put a date on it, it's going to pass, and you're going to get me on next year and say, well, remember you set that date. So we're not doing it.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at it the right way. You have to look at it holistically, your overall impact to your life. I think sometimes people just view just through the lens of because they hate their full-time job so much that they just want to jump into the next thing. There's no guarantee you're going to absolutely fall in love with the next thing either.
And the thing is, too, in the environment we're in is no one really knows what the economy is going to do. I'm not a doom and gloom like a lot of people are, but I'm also not a everything's fine, we're not going to notice anything like a lot of people are either. I'm kind of in the middle. But you don't know. And if you don't have to quit your job during that, why would you? You don't have to quit your job until you know how that shakes out. Why would you put yourself and your family in that situation? And so it's kind of where I'm at now.
All right, Chase. So it's time now for our standard questions that we ask all our guests. So I'm going to go ahead and hit you with the first one. What's one piece of action a listener can take after listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I think the big thing on the front end is education. I feel like a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are educating themselves as they're listening, which is, I guess, why they're here. The biggest thing is find someone, I feel like, that does this. Like I was telling you guys earlier, there was a friend of mine that had rental properties that helped me feel more comfortable after the first one to go out and buy more. And the next thing is just take action. Like I was saying, the first one is really, really scary because it's a lot of money. Regardless of what you're buying, unless you're doing 0% down, it's going to feel like a lot of money. But once you do the first one, it's like anything else. After that one, it almost just feels natural. Like it's so easy to go out and buy the second, third, fourth, fifth, bigger or more. But the first one's always the hardest. Even if it's the cheapest property, it's the hardest mentally. Once you get past that, you're good. And I would say your first one doesn't have to be a killer deal. I know a lot of people have looked for, hey, I've got to find a 1% rule to be my first one. I'm just not going to buy one unless it's 1%. If it's not, it's okay. As long as it cash flows and you don't lose money. If you make $100 a month on the first one, that's fine, but that'll give you the confidence to go out and buy 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now you'll know what to look for to get a better deal. I don't think the first deal has to make you rich.
I agree with you on that one. So it's funny you say that because I bought my house and I was barely breaking even on a house hack down here in Southern California. By the time I move out, I'll have, and I rent out all the bedrooms individually, I'll be at the 0.8% rule in California, which is difficult to get to. But I bought 2.5 years ago when it wasn't that good of a deal. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting on $200,000 of equity. You know, like it turns into a home run if you just hold it for a
It
while.
does. As long as it's not a bad deal. Agree. 100%.
Yep. All right, Chase, for question 2, what has your W-2 allowed you to do in terms of reaching these financial goals for this portfolio?
Yeah. So my W-2 is not a 9 to 5 sit at a desk. It's in sales like we were talking about. And so my office is my car. And so it allows me a lot of flexibility to go look at a house in the middle of the day. It allows me a lot of flexibility to talk to a realtor or a homeowner or an apartment owner, or anyone on the phone while I'm driving. Of course, the education piece while I'm driving as well. But I don't have a rigid schedule in an office. So also, I've been doing this for a while, and I've built up a lot of equity with my company, a lot of equity with my boss. And so that gives me more flexibility as well because they know I'm going to perform, I'm going to sell, I'm going to be near the top. And they just kind of backed off and just let me do my thing. You guys ever read the book, So Good They Can't Ignore You?
Yes.
Kind of the same way of if you're so good at what you do, not that you can call your own shots, but you get a lot more leniency there to actually do things the way that you need to do them as long as you keep performing at a high level. That's kind of what my jobs allow me to do.
Well, and you can't get there by bullshitting either. And I think that's what allows us to be successful in our W-2s and real estate investing is like be an all-star employee for yourself after you've done it for somebody else. You know, do it for somebody else, do it under a company, a sales team, whatever. Then you can do it for yourself because you know what it's like to be an all-star employee.
100% agree.
All right, Chase, here's a third question. What's one thing you would have done differently or do differently with your W-2 income?
Ooh. I probably would have, I don't know, I live really frugally. Everyone calls me cheap. I like to use the word frugal. It sounds better for me.
It sounds nicer.
It sounds way better.
Sounds
for
better.
me.
I agree
Everyone
with you.
says I'm really cheap. So I never really have allowed lifestyle creep to kind of affect what I do. I spend the same amount of money on me as I did at 22 when I started doing this and had no money. I think what I would do is start investing sooner. So use the money that I had from my W-2. Like I was telling you guys, I was really conservative and play it safe. And I was anti stocks and stock market for so long because I didn't want to lose any of my money. So it was just all going into a bank account for years and years. So if you live cheap enough, that can kind of slowly build up. But it was doing that for probably 10 years. So I would have definitely started 5 or 6 or even more years earlier to get that snowball rolling, and I'd be retired by now for sure.
But you might still be choosing to work your W-2 just to get that little extra.
I may still be here. You're right. I say that. I wouldn't have to work now, and I don't have to work now. Yeah, I don't have to work now. I haven't had that work for, I guess a couple of years. But there's no reason not to, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny, I call it FU money. Like I want to be able to be in the position, like if I get a bad boss, if I get just an unlucky job or role or whatever, I'd be like, all right, FU, like I don't need this. I'm going to go do something because I truly work to be fulfilled. Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of folks, I guess Chase X and I are the same way, man. If I wasn't working, what the hell would I do with myself all day?
Yeah.
I'd probably get into more trouble and buy worse deals.
That's what I'm about to say. Well, what's the quote? Idle hands is the devil's advocate.
Yep. Yep.
Hey, so you keep yourself busy in a good way, not a stressful busy, but keep yourself occupied, I guess.
Absolutely. So, all right, Chase, you ready for my weird would you rather question?
I'm ready.
So I got it more of like this is like kind of a philosophy style question, kind of not. Want to keep it less weird because I don't know you that well, Chase. So maybe next time I have you on, make it a little bit weirder. Shoot. So tell me, would you rather be the smartest person in every room you walk into or the most athletic person in every time you pick up a sport or anytime you play in a pickup game or anything like that?
So I'm sure I have to ask a few questions about this. The pickup games and the sports that I play, can I make money doing them or are they completely recreational?
Sure, you can make money.
That's tough. I think I'm still going to say the smartest person in the room, which you never want to be the smartest person in the room. But if you're smart enough, someone's got to be the smartest person in every room. There's someone out there that's smarter than everybody, and they're smartest in every room they go into. I would rather be that person. So I played football in college, and I was around a handful of guys that were the most freakishly athletic people you have ever seen in your life. Like, SEC Freshman of the Year, McDonald's All-American in basketball, the same guy. SEC Football Freshman
The
of the
same
Year,
guy.
McDonald's, same guy, and just freak athlete. But he wasn't the smartest person in the room, any room that he was in. So I would take the smartest person in the room all day over athletic ability. If you're smart enough,
Yeah.
you know the ways to get and stay in shape, so at least you're in shape.
That's true. That's true. What is the Deion Sanders quote? He's like, I used to tell my mama growing up, I wanted to be the baddest. She said, like, there's always going to be someone badder. And he's like, I looked at her and said, Mama, well, someone's got to be the baddest. Like, somene's got to be the baddest dude out
Somebody
there.
has to, yeah.
Somebody has to be the baddest man out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm going sport, or like the physical thing for me. Yeah. And I say this at my job all the time. The only reason I say this is ignorance is bliss, and I'm a happy dude, man. So
that's a very good point.
Because, HR, like at my position now, like I get entitled to information that I didn't know years ago when I wasn't promoted. And it's like, hey man, let's go back to you not telling me shit and people get fired. I don't want to be responsible for knowing these things. And I tell them ignorance is bliss and I'm a happy dude. Don't ruin my happiness. Like keep me in the dark if you need to.
You have a very good point there. That's a very valid argument. I think you're.
And then I'm playing X and one-on-one. I'm yamming him.
I'm taking him straight 360 dunks, mossing him every time he played football. Oh yeah, I agree. so X, what do you? What's yours?
It's hard because I have those moments what Nick talks about, but I would have to say just the smartest person in the room. I love to just learn stuff and know shit all the time, and I don't know, it would be fun to know a lot of that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man, it's a toss up, but if I have to choose, I'm going with the smartest person in the room.
I'm the same. It's close for me. It's neck and neck. If you would have asked me 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say most athletic, and it's not even close. Like give me let me run a 4.2 and have a 40-inch vert and all that kind of stuff. Because I didn't care about being smart. I started reading probably 5 or 6 years ago, and that's when I'm like, I just want to learn everything. I want all the information, all of it. Just give me all of it. And so things have kind of flip-flopped a little bit. Maybe it's because I was becoming less athletic, and I couldn't say I'm super athletic anymore. I had to.
Yeah, shit.
Dang it! I can't do anything about this. Let's switch. We don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would love to be able to read, like to your point, stuff very quickly. Yeah. There's sometimes like that's why I listen to like books and just Audible, mm-hmm. because I feel like I can listen and consume things faster. If I'm reading a book, there's sometimes when I'm just reading out loud. I'm just like, I'm not getting this. I have to read this one more time and then one more time. When I'm listening to it, I'm just on it. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why.
See, I'm like that in both reading and listening. I can be reading and I can be a few pages in and like, what in the heck did I just read? And then I'm driving, listening to a podcast, and I haven't paid attention in 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like, what? So I don't know which one's worse or better for me. I don't know if there's a good one. I'm both pretty bad about those. My mind just goes a million different directions.
Chase, I think we just convinced ourselves just to go to athlete.
Hey, I'm 100%. I will switch back in a heartbeat.
Chase is in the dad league. You know what I mean? Gosh, he's just like, hey, get all your, because kids have the kids' friends and all the other dads that are there. You're like, hey, you want to play some one-on-one for pick up $100?
I'd dominate those kids right now. I mean, my kids are only 2, so let's do it now and versus when they're in high school or something. But yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I can't imagine. It's going to be hard for me if my daughter's super athletic, her being more athletic and beating me in soccer or whatever else she plays. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
It'll be a tough day. Hopefully far in the future, because it looks like you're keeping yourself in shape. So hopefully we got a long runway till you hit there.
Hopefully so.
Well, Chase, I know I appreciated the time and appreciated the episode. I mean, I feel like there was a lot of stuff here that our listeners can definitely take away. Where's a good way for them to be able to reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you further?
Yeah, for sure. Instagram. I'm not super active. And by super active, I mean not hardly active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is realestate_Chase. And so I don't post a lot. I'm on there a lot, consuming content and education, but I don't post a lot. But yeah, it's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time, man. We look forward to having you back on soon enough.
For sure, man. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Enjoyed it.
All right, guys. That was Chase Ingram. phenomenal episode. It's not just the coffee speaking, I promise. I really enjoyed that, man. It's just super down to earth. Shout out to X, by the way. He seems to meet the coolest motherfuckers at Bigger Pockets, man. He's got the most badass guests out there, man. But what'd you think, X? How'd you feel?
It was great having him on. So we were able to connect quickly in BPCon, and then him and I actually jumped on a call sometime last month to chat a little bit more. So happy we were able to get on the podcast. Dude, he's been crushing. He started back in 2018. That's like 4 years ago. And you think you look at how he's built his portfolio, like over 70 units, like that's pretty damn good. But what do you think, Nick? What are some of the things that our listeners can take away from today's podcast?
Yeah, so it's something we've talked about. I mean, it's the whole reason we started the podcast. If you hate your W-2 and you're looking at real estate investment as this like unicorn to pull you out of it, you might be the problem, right? So maybe look internally, see why you don't like your job. Is there anything you can do to change about that? Because you're really putting yourself in undue financial burden and hardship if you leave immediately without having an amazing situation around you. Chase hasn't had to work for years now, and he still does because he's like, why not? I enjoy my job. I like it. It pays me well. It allows me to buy more real estate, and I live off of my W-2 income so that I can spend $0 of my real estate to continue to snowball a portfolio, which I suggest everyone do, which is why we started the show. So you could be a W-2 investor because it's really tough to make that climb into immediate being only a W-2 or only a real estate investor. So I think that's what everyone's taken away. But we really enjoyed him out. I can't wait to have him back on again in a little bit and probably pick his brain a little bit more about his flip systems. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the detail there because he's trying to get to doing 1 or 2 flips a month while working only like a month or 2 on the business, which I thought was really cool.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we are your W-2 amigos. If you're looking to get a hold of us, we are on Instagram and TikTok at the W2 Amigos. We're also on YouTube at that same handle. So please hit us up. We're super active on Instagram and YouTube. We really appreciate an honest review. Cough, cough, 5 stars. If you can, it really helps us share. But I would also see, and I know I shouted out at the beginning of the podcast, but if you guys can share this with a friend, I'd really appreciate the consideration for that. If you're looking to get a hold of me, I'm at the Fi Family on Instagram and TikTok. And then also I'm on Bigger Pockets as a investor friendly real estate agent in Southern California market, or any market, honestly, man. Hit me up. Let's talk real estate. X, what about you?
Yep, you can find me at XavierMarin _ at Instagram and TikTok. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next time.
Peace.